Video here, we're going to be talking about the cards Mirror Force and Deep Prison. Right now, a lot of people are saying Mirror Force is bad or Deep Prison is bad. And some people are saying that Mirror Force is great or Deep Prison is great. And I'm going to sit here and talk about each card and explain why they both are good or both are bad. And, you know, you'll have an idea by the end of the video. Now, Mirror Force and Deep Prison are two cards that people have been subbing in for each other, or they'll use two of, or they'll use one of each. And it's just kind of, they've both been semi-limited for a while, so people kind of know them as the attack negators and such. It's like Mirror Force that wipes big fields, so if you're facing something like Geargia or Infernity when they crazy extend, then Mirror Force has been known to be able to stop things. At the same time as Deep Prison's really good for specific decks that use cards such as the Hands or something else, such as the Moral Attack, and just certain cards that when your opponent tries to do an attack and you don't want to destroy that card, you'd rather banish it instead, such as the Lead Yoke. Just as a prime example, your opponent attacks with a Lead Yoke, you better be using Deep Prison and not Mirror Force, because Deep Prison does not destroy. Just a quick overrun of the effects. Deep Prison is a card that says when your opponent declares an attack, you can negate the attack, target the attacking monster, and then banish that monster. And so, it's good. It doesn't destroy like Mirror Force does, it just plain old banishes it. But the problem with Deep Prison is it targets. You've also got the Mirror Force. Mirror Force says, this card, or when your opponent's monster declares an attack, destroy all face-up attacking monster, or attack position monsters. So, your opponent attacks with an overextend field, and you blow up everything. But if your opponent only has one monster, you're not going to want to really waste the Mirror Force, so a lot of times you'll take the damage from the first attack monster. The good thing about this card is it doesn't target. The bad thing is it destroys it. So, you know, they both have their plus and negatives, positives and negatives. Now, if you're trying to use an attack where you're trying to face Hands, you're not going to want to use Mirror Force unless your opponent is going to Xyz. But if they know you have the Mirror Force, they're not going to take those Hands off the field. Now, if you're using Deep Prison and your opponent declares an attack, you can kill one of their cards. And if they've got a field full of cards, are you going to try and Mirror Force when they've got 3 hands and 2 XYZs, or are you going to like Deep Prison a hand, or there's a lot of things with this deck that you've got to try and plan for. Each of these cards have their own thing they add to the game. At the same time as there are small replacements people have been trying, such as just the Magical Cylinder where your opponent takes damage instead of yourself, especially with how much life points people pay because of the Soul Charge. Then you've got cards such as Scrap Iron Scarecrow, which does a very similar thing, just negating the attack, but instead of getting rid of the monsters stuck on the field. Or Sakuretsu Armor, the world's most budget version of these two cards, which says your opponent's monster declares an attack, target the attacking monster, and destroy it. It's like combine the bad sides of both cards. Now, there's no card that says when your opponent's monster declares an attack, banish all cards. Oh wait, there is. It's the Black Wings only. So if we're going to try and get the best of both worlds, we're going to have to go and play Black Wings. Everybody stop what you're doing and go play Black Wings. Anyways, to be in all seriousness though, these two cards have their own specialties in both formats. A format ago, right before the Hands. I'm calling them separate formats because Hands completely changed the way that the format was seen. It went from being Bujin tops 100% of the time. It was like Bujins, Geargia, Infernities. And then we had, what happened? Hands and Jelly. And people were like, oh my goodness, everyone's going to start playing Madolche. Madolche tier 1, 1 top, 2 top, because they're easy to side against. But then you've got this weird artifact, hand, trap, trick, mixture of craziness, which just forms this mosh pit of everyone's playing the same 14 million. Oh my gosh. When you go to a tournament and there's 300 people there and 255 of them are using artifact hand tricks, how many of those top decks do you think are going to be not artifact hand tricks? We're going to kind of, each one of these cards have their own time, and I'm going to explain it with the formats. Just one format ago, we had Mirror Force, because Mirror Force shut down those top decks. And right now, what are the top decks? Artifact hand tricks, Geargia stuff, because there's pure Geargia and Geargia Karakuri and random other versions of Geargia as I've seen, like some claiming to be anti-meta and some claiming to be like faster, I don't know. And then you've got versions of decks like Madolche's. When you access and analyze each one of these decks, you'll realize that they all kind of do different things. So how are you going to know whether to choose Mirror Force or Deep Prison? Mirror Force and Deep Prison both have different things that they do to the game. Mirror Force says all attack position monsters are killed. All of them. So if your opponent tries to summon more than one card, or your opponent tries to attack with more than 2 cards on the field, you can guarantee that they're going to go minus and you're going to go plus. Because, you know, in the way it works, your opponent goes minus 14 and you only go minus 1, you technically went plus like 12 because, you know, 1 for 1, and then the fact that you had to use it and wait a turn, but, you know. In the end, Mirror Force is a good card when your opponent has no kind of response. But there are certain decks right now that are trying to get popular, such as the new deck that I did another video on, called Yangzing. With Yangzing coming out, and decks that just kind of thrive, like Fire Kings and stuff, you gotta be careful with the Mirror Force. But that leads us to Deep Prison. Deep Prison says it kills one monster, and it banishes it instead of destroying it. One monster. That's not bad per se, because killing one monster can banish it and do great stuff with that. And if your opponent is using the new Heavyweight Samurais, which I'm trying to do, work it out for a guest upload thing, or not guest upload, a guest request that I've been requested to do, it's just, they can be Deep Prisoned, they can't be Mirror Forced, and it's such a strange archetype. But then you've got other decks, like Madolche's. If I attack and I'm trying to fight and you use Mirror Force, it's like, okay, trap's done, I mean, what we do. And then you've got Deep Prison, which just banishes the card. If I attack, I'm going for game, and you flip up Mirror Force and I chain Trap Stun, you are now allowed to chain Deep Prison, because same chain link. It's pretty awesome with that, and Deep Prison banishes the problem. I'd say Deep Prison's better to use in that combo or situation, because you just got rid of the problematic queen for good. Deep Prison banishes the card. This format, and this format alone, I will pretty much say that I think Deep Prison is a better card, because this format has too many cards that either need to stay in the graveyard or need to go to the graveyard, and too many cards that can be destroyed and Mirror Force will kill it. Does this mean Mirror Force is bad this format? Not necessarily, because people like to XCs, and people are constantly, that extra deck's looking really nice when you got 2 level 4s on the field. It doesn't matter if they're both hands, or it doesn't matter if it's like hand and like, if I die I win the lottery. I mean, people just look at that and they're like, you're looking like an extinction right now. You're looking just like Silent Honor Arc. That's your ice hand. You can get it on with that Meyer Mellow, and we can get some stinking sexy times. I mean, look at that Evolve All Chain. You've got people tempted to do those extra deck things, and the second they do, Mirror Force becomes live, because targeting is an issue slightly when you're facing Boojins, and Boojins, you flip up Mirror Force, they go, cool story, bro. Banish my hair. Oh, Deep Prison. Cool story, bro. Banish my turtle. I mean, they've got all the outs. So you're not going to be able to use these cards to the max advantage against them unless you do what I was saying earlier, where you flip up one, they flip up, and then you flip up the other one. Which, chain linking is great. But at the same time, you've got to remember, each one's got their own decks. And you're not going to be able to successfully use Mirror Force against Artifact Traptrix hands unless your opponent is tempted by that extra deck. So in the end, you've got to remember, each one's got their own thing. As I was saying a minute ago, right now, Deep Prison's probably the better choice. And running 2 of Deep Prison is probably the best you can do. Because not only are you going to see it, but you're going to be able to see it in strange situations. And because people's monster lineups right now is 3, and then hands. You've got 6 cards in your opponent's deck that are pretty much guaranteed to try and attack you. And being able to flip up Deep Prison to protect your monster is great. And no longer is it, I have to protect my small monsters. Now it's, I've got to protect my big monsters that they're going to run hands into. So in my opinion, I am saying Deep Prison's good. Tell me what you think about Deep Prison and Mirror Force. If you think they're both dead right now because Artifact Traptrix hands are saying, I run 6 main deck MST. Once again, I will say, comment below why. There are tons of traps in this deck, and if you're using just these 2, or just these 4, you've got these 4 in your trap lineup, and you've got a whole bunch of other. If your opponent's willing to waste their 6 MST on your cards instead of their artifacts, at the same time as they're willing to get rid of your cards and not hit your Mirror Force and D-Prisons and not hit all your summon negations, let them do that. I guarantee you'll be able to win using your monsters and crap by them not being able to use theirs. People keep coming up with these excuses like, oh, they're running 1600 MSTs. They're running 1600 MSTs because they want to hurt their own cards. They want to get their own artifacts into play, and people seem to forget that. So, yeah.